Now that you've got vocals under your belt, we're going to talk about recording an acoustic guitar. I have a Martin D35 here. It is a bassy, loud guitar that sometimes doesn't record well because it's such a big sounding guitar. It can be hard to fit into a mix, but if it's the only guitar that's the only thing that's going to be in the mix versus a vocal and a guitar and that's it, it might be a great instrument because it's so big that you want it to fill up all that extra space, since you're not going to have a bass guitar or keys or drums or whatever. It's just going to be a singer-songwriter thing. Just something to keep in mind. I have two different types of picks here. One is a really heavy, really heavy, almost no flexibility at all kind of steer horn pick. Good for flat picking bluegrass. The other is more of a traditional pick. It's still a lot heavier than a lot of people like, but it's flexible. And I find that these thinner picks are usually better for strumming. Because they don't engage this particular guitar in such a way as to make it super bassy. It's already really bassy. Here's my heavier pick. I'll show you the difference. This pick's also kind of rounded, so it doesn't bite and get you as much brightness. So what this pick is good for is soloing or flat picking or anything that needs to have all that extra fat and beefiness on it because it's just a single note at a time. Or versus my thinner pick. So I get a little fatter tone. These are all considerations to be made before you even talk about the microphone. And I'm kind of approaching all these instruments isolated in an overdubbing mindset where you just bring it in, you're in a room all by yourself, you don't have to worry about competing with a drum set in the same room. That's something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. We're just getting the basic ideas down for an overdubbing type of approach. So the room matters a little bit. We could, if we think we're picking up mud or just bad echoes, we could put some sound cave stuff around us like we did for the vocals. Or, just kind of move the mic around. What I have right here, let's talk about the mic. What I have right here is a small diaphragm condenser. So it's a condenser. It requires phantom power. It looks, so you can see it there, it looks kind of like that. And if you recall, small diaphragm condensers are usually really good at picking up the attacks of things. They're pretty much accurate, true representations. They are oftentimes the first mic people will reach for recording an acoustic guitar. That said, there's no hard and fast rule here. We're going to try a different mic a little bit later on. Nothing wrong with the dynamic mic, nothing wrong with the large diaphragm condenser. Just understand that all those things that go along with those mics would apply. A large diaphragm condenser, an LDC, is going to bring its own color to things, so you better be sure that you like the color that you're adding to the guitar. Something like this mic here is going to keep things as uncolored and natural as possible, and it's still going to be a very detailed, full range kind of sound. A dynamic mic is probably going to be a little less detailed, maybe more useful for something where the guitar is going to be mixed together with other instruments later on, or you just wanted a more raw, punchier sound. So back to the SDC, the small diaphragm condenser. We're about 12 inches away from the guitar. I would say that it's lined up with the 14th fret, right about where the body meets the neck. And it's actually aimed back toward my hand. Now, I'm trying to keep it away from the sound hole because I have so much bass, even on a non-bassy guitar. There's a lot of bass that comes out of the sound hole. So as I come away from the sound hole, I'm nowhere close to the microphone. The microphone's way over here. But it is pointed back kind of across the sound hole at where my pick drags across the strings. Now you can play with, the positioning. You can do all kinds of experiments. But this is a great place to start if you're just looking for that standard, clean, nothing wrong with it type of acoustic sound. It doesn't have necessarily a ton of character unless you're playing an acoustic guitar with a ton of character. But it's going to work for a lot of styles. If you were going to move it around at all, I would recommend maybe even coming from a completely different angle, way down here shooting at the bridge maybe, if you wanted it to be a brighter, less bassy sound. Let's just do that real quick. You can see what you think of the sound. I'm going to spin it. I'm going to spin it all the way around, and now it's about 1.5 feet away from the bridge. I'm going to bring it back. And just out of curiosity, we're going to switch to a different mic. I want to try the Sennheiser MD421, which is another, it's a dynamic mic, so it doesn't need phantom power, but it has a bunch of options when it comes to rolling the bass out of the sound. So if you were trying to get a thinner sound, even though you've got a bassy guitar like this, my theory is an MD421 is going to have a lot of attack, a lot of brightness, and I can dial out a bunch of the boom. So let's switch our mics and we'll come back and listen. Okay, I'm kind of talking, check, 1, 2. Okay, I'm kind of talking close to this mic because I want you to hear what happens when I roll the bass off of this thing. The Sennheiser MD421 has a lot of options for bass roll-off, so here we go. Check, 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 check. Do you hear the bass come out of my voice? Listen for the low end. Boo. So we're going to roll the bass all the way out. And, well, you know what? We're going to leave it flat, just flat, with all the bass in, put it in the same position as the small diaphragm condenser Neumann was, and listen for the difference. Then we'll roll the bass off. Now let's take the bass out. So we just compared a real standard mic, which is the Neumann KM184. It's almost $1,000 for that one small diaphragm condenser, but it is a really sought after standard for all kinds of things, but particularly acoustic guitar. This is that MD421 by Sennheiser, which is about a $300 microphone. It's much more common to see these on toms for drum set recording, close miking toms. But it's a great mic for a lot of things. It's got a lot of snap, a lot of brightness to it, a lot of control over the bass. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting just to kind of compare those two in the same plane and see what you think. And you kind of have an idea then of how a couple of different mic choices can change the sound and character of even the same guitar. But don't forget that if you do have options, listen to the instrument itself, listen to the pick, and try to get the sound in the room working the way that you want it to work before you start trying to fix it with a microphone choice. Sometimes you don't have that option. Sometimes you've just got one guitar and you've got to go with it. But generally speaking, the best approach is to do the work up front. That starts with picking the right instrument before you start toying with the microphone. And then the microphone position. Feel free to really experiment with that. Sometimes the right sound for a song is not the best sounding guitar on the planet. Let me grab you a really terrible guitar and play it for you, and we'll talk about that. So something like this is going to be a textural character type of thing. It is not going to sound like a great guitar. It's actually a horrible guitar, but maybe it's perfect for the song that you're doing. I can think of a lot of songs where this might fit in way better than a $2,000 Martin would. Let's just listen. Sometimes a toy piano is the right thing, not a Steinway. So these are all things to keep in mind when you're recording an acoustic guitar. Don't ever get stuck with your blinders on and locked into a set of rules. Use your ears, always use your ears, and use your brain throughout the whole process. Now, one thing that I didn't mention while I had my guitar out, because my guitar doesn't have this, a lot of acoustics have pickups. You've got an acoustic electric. Generally speaking, if you had to only choose one option, a microphone is going to give you a way better natural sound than a pickup is. Generally speaking, unless you've got a very specific sound in mind or some need, to keep the acoustic completely isolated from the room. There are times when I do use only pickups, a lot of times for like an upright bass, because an upright bass, if it's playing live with a whole bunch of other instruments, there's almost no way you can put a microphone on that if there's drums in the room and things are loud, and you're going to get enough usable signal. So for an upright bass or even a bass guitar, an electric bass, I might take only the pickup signal and not worry about using a mic. But with an acoustic guitar, most of the time you're going to want a mic. Having said that, the pickup is not useless. Options are a good thing. So it's a great idea to go ahead and record both. Put the pickup on one channel, just hook it up like you would the electric guitar or the drum machine. It just goes, 1/4 inch in. And then the microphone on another channel. Just remember, options are always good. And if you have the tracks, if you have the equipment, and you don't have to shortchange anybody else anywhere, go ahead and record as much material as you can so that you've got lots of choices later on down the road.